Papa Shro back again. Chiefs Kingdom. Welcome to the podcast. We're here to talk Chiefs football this weekend, heading into the divisional round. First game of the playoffs for the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend at Arrowhead. 3:30 start time, Saturday afternoon. Game will be on NBC. You can also watch on Peacock, I'm pretty sure. It's another rematch. Every single game from Wild Card Weekend was a rematch from the regular season. Had a few divisional games in there, and now we have another rematch from Week 10. Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars coming in off of an insane comeback against the Los Angeles Chargers last Saturday night. Wild game that I kind of stopped paying attention to for a while. I ended up catching the very end of it. But boy, I did not see that one coming at all. This Jacksonville team last weekend, I feel like, made me a little bit of a fan. Just seeing Trevor Lawrence, the way he handled himself, kind of the way he spoke, which we're going to get into some of his comments, of course. I think that you probably all know what I'm talking about at some point in this episode. Kind of a preview of Jacksonville and Kansas City this weekend. Just to get things started, so McCole Hardman going to be out for this game. As far as I know, Jody Fortson isn't playing as well, just kind of going over some of the inactives. Other than that, the Chiefs' injury list wasn't large. The only person that they had was, as I said, McCole Hardman listed as out, actually, compared to the Jaguars, which have a lot of questionables on their injury report going in. I put my piece out, Jags and Jaguars divisional round preview. So if you want to go check that out, that's on my Substack right now. If you're listening on Spotify, go check out, or any other podcast platform other than Substack, go check out my Substack, Papa Shro Knows. And just a lot of different stuff that you can check out there, mainly a bunch of Chief stuff, and that's what we're going to get into today. I think that pretty much sums up. Again, check it out, Papa Shro Knows, also on the Substack. So just to get right into it, the first thing I kind of want to go into, something that's kind of been heavy once I saw this video, just because it makes sense. So the Jaguars have a lot of different targets that they can use, and they got a lot more comfortable as the game went on in Week 10 that I noticed. One, rewatching the game, and even during the game, it seemed like it was a little tighter towards the end. Jaguars obviously kicked off that game with an onside kick that they recovered, and I remember being at the game just kind of thinking, oh no, these guys came to play. And I think as the game went on, they felt like you kind of felt like the tricks and different things to kind of get by the Chiefs, they didn't feel as necessary. I think they came in with a shock and awe value, and this was a 3-6 team that came into Kansas City at Week 10. So definitely a much different team that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to see this week. But I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to play this clip from the Kansas City Sports Network with Brett Coleman, just kind of pointing out some stuff with the defense from Week 10.
Doug Peterson showed in the last game and in the games leading up to it that if you're giving him two high safety structures, he's going to out-scheme you, like really, really well. He's going to out-scheme you. And that's when I went back and looked at Week 10. I was like, okay, well, let me look at every single coverage snap in cover 2 and every single coverage snap in quarters. I'm telling you, BJ, it was dialed up. Like, it was there. Like, Christian Kirk had a monster day, and he should have had another 100 yards on top of that. There was one big gainer against Tampa 2 where the ball got knocked down at the line of scrimmage. There was 2 more that were taken away by sacks. Like, if the defensive front didn't play out of their minds in that game, Chiefs would have lost. Straight up, they would have lost. And I all this to say, schematically, I am concerned here because the Chiefs do not play the same style of defense that the Chargers played to constrain this defense. And the type of defense the Chiefs play is the exact type of defense that Doug Peterson is really good at exploiting. So, like, we need Chris Jones to play out of his mind. We need Karlaftis. We need all these edges. Like, they need to have the game of their life. Because schematically speaking on the back end, this favors Jacksonville, as weird as that is to say.
So I saw that video on Twitter right after I got done writing my preview of this game, and one thing that I didn't really catch on with, I didn't watch a lot of film to go back and watch a lot of film on that Week 10 game, so that's partially my fault too for not, doing my due diligence. But, just seeing that and Brett Coleman with BJ Kissel there of Kansas City Sports Network, just to hear that, I mean, it goes back to kind of what I was saying. You got to get the pressure on Trevor Lawrence. And that was a big key in that game in Week 10. And a big reason why the Chiefs won that game. Getting 5 sacks in Week 10, Chris Jones 1.5, and I mean, he absolutely wrecked that interior, which is something that I think that they could do again. Arrowhead Pride did a good breakdown in their film review that I watched a little bit of, just detailing Chris Jones on the inside. Seth Kaiser did a piece recently as well, just about how, also on Substack, just about how well Chris Jones disrupts your offense and how he's using help from other people and helping other people get into the pass rushing attack. And, the Kansas City Chiefs right now, 55 sacks in 2022. That's second in the league. And I know here locally and, me being heavy on Chiefs Twitter and just seeing a lot of opinions out there, I don't think that we're that confident in our pass rush when it comes to most of us that watch a lot of Chiefs football. It's been inconsistent, and I feel like that's kind of been the theme of the team all year is inconsistencies. And with Coleman pointing all of this out with the cover 4 and just the 2 high safeties look and cover 2. And if Trevor Lawrence has time in the pocket, I mean, he's going to be able to really do some damage to the secondary. The secondary allowed the most touchdowns passing this year, 33. That's the worst in the league. Tied for 27th, 95.3 rating given to quarterbacks this year. And that's another point, though, that I will say that the secondary is inconsistent as well. I feel like the numbers aren't as bad as what they seem like when you're watching, and, vice versa, which sometimes I feel like, when I look at these numbers, I think, man, am I seeing correctly? Or, I don't know what the right way to put that is, but are my eyes deceiving me? Because I feel like the pass rush isn't as good as number 2 in the league with sacks, which, they've had their moments, and this game was one of them. So, and along with Jacksonville's O-line, that has not been the best this season. But then again, they've only allowed 28 sacks this year in 2022. So, there's, I don't know, there's holes to poke in all of this. Jacksonville's O-line last week allowed 18.4% pressure rate against the Los Angeles Chargers on 49 dropbacks for Trevor Lawrence last Saturday night. So I think that definitely you can see on that film breakdown that I was kind of talking about Arrowhead Pride, they pointed to that Titans game and how the Titans interior really worked against the interior of the line of Jacksonville really well. And the same thing with Chris Jones in Week 10, what he did. Colin Saunders as well. Leo Chanel got in there for his first sack of his career in Week 10. It was a really fun game to be at. It was one of the first games I feel like all year where I felt not that there was, not any anxiety of, and when I say that, just the anxiousness you get of, facing, not sure if this team can put it all together. I feel like that was the first time where I felt everything was together. The offense was with the defense. Everyone was playing at a high level. 5 sacks on the defensive side. Again, 1.5 for Chris Jones. On the offensive side of the ball, you saw Patrick Mahomes throw for 331 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did throw the interception, 129.6 rating. It was the second highest quarterback rating of the season. So one of his best games of the year, and altogether for the Chiefs, I think maybe the best game that they put on paper this year, especially with the opponent that you're looking at. You're looking at a playoff opponent, Granted, they were a 3-6 team. They were a 3-6 team heading into this game at Arrowhead in Week 10. So you're definitely facing a completely different Jacksonville Jaguar team this week here in the divisional round, and riding high on a 6-game win streak, which features that insane comeback, the third largest comeback in playoff history that the Jacksonville Jaguars pulled off last week, at one point down 27-0 in that first half with, your quarterback throwing 4 interceptions. And, Trevor Lawrence still went for 288 last week and 4 touchdowns as well as the 4 interceptions. You have to be careful. With all the targets he has, Evan Ingram that has stepped up insanely huge this year. And, me personally, as a fantasy football player, having Evan Ingram, if you owned him at any point, had him on your squad in fantasy, probably not a big Evan Ingram fan. But Evan Ingram has had a career year, along with Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones. This team is so interesting to me because I feel like they have a lot of high-level 2 receivers, or number 2 receivers, This is something I've been kind of thinking about all week since this happened with the Chargers, kind of thinking about Doug Peterson and the way he's ran with this team and how smart he's been, because you're finally starting to see Trevor Lawrence become that guy. He is becoming a top-flight quarterback in this league. We're watching it in front of our eyes this year. I honestly think. And Trevor Lawrence has kind of made me a fan this season. And just his mentality. He talked about this week just not getting down on the sideline. Threw 4 picks in the first half last week of the first playoff game of your career at home. That is not easy to overcome. And just the simple fact that he overcame that, came back, won that game, it just shows you what level of just person you're dealing with, really, I think. When it comes down to Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he is a high-level person to not let that adversity get to him like that, and someone that can come through under pressure for you. So I think the Jacksonville Jaguars definitely have their guy in Trevor Lawrence, and I wasn't hugely high on Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. I didn't think that he was quite the generational talent that people made him out to be. Maybe I will be proven wrong now. So I think this is a much more dangerous game than we're looking at. And even when I was writing the blog, like before, I kind of, my eyes were opened by Brett Coleman to that fact, because I did think that there were moments where, okay, that shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have let the Jaguars get within 10 points when we played them. It's a 3-6 team. I didn't think too much into it because of Kadarius Toney's big outing that week. You had the injury to Juju Smith-Schuster. MVS missed a little bit of time off of a hit that was, it wasn't great. And the Juju Smith-Schuster injury was something that was maybe the scariest thing I've seen live. Just the yellow gloves, man, that was the worst part about that hit. Because I feel like when he went limp and you could just see those yellow gloves, we sitting up in the upper deck, and you could just tell he wasn't moving for quite a minute. So definitely going to be a much different game, I think, this time around. But you still got the number 1 quarterback in the league. You still got the top-ranked offense in the league. 308.8 yards a game for Patrick Mahomes coming into this game. This offense ranks number 1 in points per game and yards per game. Second best team on third down, offensively speaking. Patrick Mahomes is averaging 8.1 yards per attempt, 12.1 per completion. So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes has absolutely stepped up on a huge level, I think, just for the simple fact, all the talk about Tyreek, but Tyreek getting taken out of this offense is a huge, huge deal. I think Tyreek Hill at the end of the day outgrew the offense. If you listen to the last Showbank show we did, me and Randy kind of finally had a moment where we could talk about that. We've been back and forth on Twitter about that for a long time. But, it's awesome to kind of see both of these guys win. You see Patrick Mahomes win. You see Tyreek Hill win. Granted, the Dolphins are eliminated from the playoffs. But, Tyreek Hill got paid. He had a great season. He helped carry that team to where they were and absolutely dominated with anyone at quarterback. So, I mean, I think both of these guys have shown that they are their own success at the end of the day, between Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. Not to stray too far away from the game, just to go back to Trevor Lawrence for a minute. 29 of 40, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 106.1 rating, week 10 against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. He had his struggles getting protection in that game, obviously. But he still had a really good game with Trevor Lawrence. I was impressed with him in week 10, honestly. And, I thought maybe at that point, okay, he's got a coach. He's got Doug Peterson behind him, former offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, part of Andy Reid's coaching tree. So I think even just the matchup between the head coaches, I think going into that game, I knew it was going to be a very interesting game just based off of, you're looking at somebody that was just in the same building as Andy Reid not long ago. I mean, honestly, not long ago. He had his run with the Eagles, but, Doug Peterson was right there with the Chiefs not long ago. So, and just the way Andy coaches, the way Andy kind of holds things back, I think that's going to make for a very interesting game. But also another thing that I think is noteworthy to mention, this is the third playoff game essentially for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That game against the Tennessee Titans in Week 18, that's an elimination game. You win, you move on. If you're the Titans or the Jaguars, the winner of that game was the AFC South Championship game. Then you move straight on into Wild Card Weekend, and now you've got a divisional opponent. This is where we're going to see if the Jaguars, how real are they? Because this is a 3-horse team in the AFC. You've got the Bills, you've got the Bengals, and you've got the Chiefs. The Chiefs have dominated the AFC for some time now. And you've got 2 other teams that are right there. The Bengals, who won the AFC Championship game last year at Arrowhead Stadium. The Bills, who have been right there for the last 3 years. They ended up losing this weekend last year, the divisional round. Amazing game. If you haven't listened to my top 5 moments of 2022, go check that out. Or read the article that I wrote on my blog on Substack as well. You can check that out as well. That was my first podcast, but I talked about that game. That was one of the just craziest things I've ever been a part of. So this weekend, to be able to see this Jacksonville game, it's going to really tell where Jacksonville is at as a team. Andy Reid's coming off of a bye. Historically, we know how good Andy Reid is off of a bye. And so a couple things I talked about in my blog that I'll go into now. I kind of rambled on about kind of what Brett Coleman was saying and just to that effect. But the rushing attack, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have to do better. They haven't played well against the running back, and I feel like in games where teams can dynamically kind of run the ball and pass the ball and move off of the run. Or the pass the other way around. I feel like I want to say that was week 4 or 5 maybe against the Raiders, the Monday Night Football game. I think the pass to Devontae Adams changed the course of that game. I think with the Bills, the same thing kind of happened where you saw the linebackers kind of getting back. That was also a time without Willie Gay when he was suspended. But you kind of saw linebackers sitting back and didn't play the run very well. I feel like throughout the year, the Chiefs didn't play the run the greatest all year long, no matter what the situation was. There was inconsistency with tackling here and there. But Travis Etienne was held to just 45 yards on 11 attempts, 4.1 yards per carry back in Week 10. A little bit better than the season average. I think they were just under 5 for the season average. The Kansas City Chiefs giving up throughout the year to running backs, yards per carry. But so to me, that's going to be a big deal. Is how well can they attack the run? Nick Bolton has to be on his job this week, which I have no doubt in Nick Bolton. That is, to me, maybe the best middle linebacker in the league right now. And the fact that he didn't get an All-Pro selection is mind-boggling to me. Or selected to the Pro Bowl. Mind-boggling. So the run game, to me, that's going to be a big deal for the Kansas City Chiefs on defense. They're going to have to stop Travis Etienne, and they're going to have to, do a good job against this run game of the Jacksonville Jaguars, because they do have an opportunity to, play run all over the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think, depending on how the game flow goes. Getting pressure on Trevor Lawrence, kind of talked about that. My 3 keys to the game in my blog that I wrote: get pressure and bring Lawrence to the ground. They brought him to the ground 5 times last week. Let's see. Looking through my notes right now. I don't think the Chargers got to him last week. Yeah, they didn't take a sack at all last week. Kind of we talked about getting pressure on Trevor Lawrence already. Stopping the Jags run game, big time deal, and efficiency with the offense. Not only do you need to be efficient and stay on schedule for the Kansas City Chiefs offense, but I think that you have to limit the turnover. I've talked about it all year on my Substack. If you followed me, that's been one thing since the Bengals game. I feel like I realized that was the number one problem for this team in general, whether it was the offense, defense, anything, was the turnovers. We talked about the Raiders game for a second. That Raiders game was the last time that we saw a game without a turnover until, I don't think it was the Texans game. I can't remember exactly what game it was, but there was a huge stretch through the season. Huge stretch that the Chiefs went where they turned the ball over every single game. They kind of got the special teams turned around. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, that terrible game in Denver. He's got to be careful and not turn the ball over. Again, he did have a turnover against the Jaguars in Week 10, an interception. So we have to watch on that. Be efficient. Run the football. Andy Reid has done such a great job this season. I commend Andy Reid this year, honestly, because how well he has been committed to running the football for the most part. Towards the middle to the end of the season, there was times in there that obviously wasn't, perfect for Andy running the football, but that's what got the Chiefs, I think, in the hairiest spots in that AFC Championship game last year. You look at the second half, they just didn't run the football, and everyone was running the ball well. You had McKinnon running over, I think McKinnon was like over 6 yards per carry. Don't quote me on that, but and Edwards-Helaire was right around 5 yards a carry as well. I mean, when your running backs are getting you half of a first down on every run play, I mean, why would you abandon the run? So I think that that's hopefully going to be a sticking note for Andy. And another thing is, don't let your foot off the gas. I didn't include that in my article, but that is definitely something that I know I tweeted about, I think, or maybe I just talked about it in the blog. I'm not 100% sure, but Andy has to know he's got to keep his foot on the gas. Plain and simple. Look at last week. Jacksonville down 27-0. They still come back and win the game. And if you're the Chiefs in the playoffs, you know what that's like. Down 24-0 to the Texans, came back and won the game. That whole run of winning Super Bowl 54 down in every single playoff game. So the importance of stepping on their neck and finishing the game. So last but not least, I kind of want to get in the crowd. I will be in attendance on Saturday. So I'm really excited for that. I'm excited to get out there, tailgate, grill up some burgers and some brats probably, and just be alive with the crowd. It's such an exciting experience going to a Kansas City Chiefs football game. I have not been to I lied. I've been to one preseason game outside of Kansas City at the LA Coliseum, a Rams-Texans preseason game. If you've ever been to an NFL game, big difference between preseason and the regular season. A big difference, I think, between regular season and playoffs. Playoffs, insane. We're going to get more into that on the other side of this, but I'm going to play the clip from Trevor Lawrence of just what he said about the crowd, and we'll talk about that on the other side of this.
Obviously, the environment and the atmosphere we're going to play in is one of, if not the best in the NFL. I mean, I can't imagine it'll be much louder than our fans were here on Saturday, honestly, but that was when we were on defense, not offense. So we played there earlier in the year, but this is a little bit different. It's a playoff game, divisional round. The difference is, you win and you keep going, you lose and you're done. So there's that sense of urgency of just, I don't want to say it this way, but just the desperation of doing everything you can to win the game, and you feel that on both sides of the ball. And it's that way in the regular season too, but it's just another level just because everybody knows, this is, especially now we're in the divisional round, we're getting deeper and deeper in this thing. People know what's on the line, and guys just willing to do whatever it takes to win.
So Trevor Lawrence says that it shouldn't be much louder than the fans were in Jacksonville last Saturday. I think this is where Trevor Lawrence messed up a little bit. So if you know Chiefs Kingdom at all, and if you're a part of Chiefs Kingdom, you know how seriously we take the noise factor at Arrowhead. It's always been a big deal. On Skip and Shannon, they showed the clip of John Elway asking for the refs to quiet the crowd down, and they threatened a penalty, and this would have been early 90s, somewhere around in there, mid 90s maybe. But also holding the record, 142.2 decibels. I mean, you can see it on a lot of apparel here in Kansas City, different things like that. Breaking the record, that was a big sense of pride for our fan base in general. And let me tell you, the last time the quarterback made comments like this was Joe Burrow last year for the AFC Championship game. And we touched on this AFC Championship game in this episode already. So I'll say this is that was the loudest I've heard that crowd, at least in recent memory. Just for the simple fact that, there's been different games I've attended the last, 3 years. We've been season ticket members, so I've been to most of the games the last 2 years. Since that AFC Championship game against the Titans, of course, COVID year, they went ahead and foregone our tickets to the following year, so it's just been the last 2 years that I've been to most of the games. I felt like last year that was part of the problem with the team. I felt like the crowd wasn't in it as much as the team wasn't. Kelsey had that big touchdown against the Chargers and walk off, and I got my swagger back. I feel like the fans kind of got into it too, and then you get to the AFC Championship game, Burrow's talking about, well, it can't be much louder than SEC Stadium. Let me tell you, so when I went to the bathroom during that game, if you've been to a sporting event, they've got the radio broadcast playing in the bathroom of sporting events. Usually pretty loud. I mean, you can hear it pretty clearly, very clearly. I mean, you go in there and you can still listen to the game. You know what's going on. Obviously, you can hear the crowd react to what's going on if anything happens while you're in there. I went in there and I realized a couple minutes into the line, I couldn't hear anything. I heard a muffled Mitch Holthus in the background, and I realized it was like I was walking out of a rock concert. That is how loud it was. I could not hear the radio in the bathroom, and I don't think that it was just because the crowd was so loud that I couldn't hear it in the bathroom. I think it was the crowd was so loud that my ears were now readjusting to normal life. And I talked about that a little bit in my blog for the preview of this game. So I've been seeing throughout social media different tactics, get your pennies ready, get your change, go in there, finish your beer, throw your change in your beer bottle and start rattling it around. The seats aren't quite as great to hit anymore as they used to be. But, we have our ways here in Kansas City of getting real loud. And, I've always said, if you have a voice the day after a Chiefs game, I mean, you weren't doing something right. You're not supposed to have a voice the next day. Usually I'm hoarse after a game. Yelling for 3 hours may do that to you, but Trevor Lawrence did mention that it wasn't while he was on offense, so it will be a little bit different this week being in offense, but they're on offense while the crowd is being so loud. I will say this, is there's nothing like a playoff game at Arrowhead. There's nothing that I've experienced like a playoff game at Arrowhead. I've been to, I guess I'm not sure how many off the top of my head thinking. The Steelers game that we lost to field goals, I was at that game. AFC Championship game against the Titans, the 2 last year, so 4 playoff games. In 4 playoff games, I've never experienced anything like that compared to any regular season game that I've ever been to. And obviously preseason. So I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be in I don't want to say a world of hurt. It is crowd noise at the end of the day, and it does affect, obviously, communication and things like that. And it is such a big deal, a vital deal here, I feel like, and a big part of our home field advantage at Arrowhead Stadium for the Kansas City Chiefs in general. And the crowd feels responsible. I will say every single person in Chiefs Kingdom takes it personally and, feel 110% part of this team. When we go out there, we're performing with the team when you're in the crowd. And I know it sounds silly and, whatever, but it is a big deal. I think, and a lot of people here take pride in that, especially a lot of the people that are season ticket members and the people that I sit around, take great pride in, being loud, and we get everybody else riled up with us. So I think Trevor Lawrence has opened a door that he probably shouldn't have opened because you can't close it. That being said, the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, are going to have to be on their A game. This is not a light game. This is not an easy game. This is not to say, this is a foregone conclusion. The Jaguars are dangerous. They showed that last week. They showed that last week being 27-0 down in a playoff game and winning. So every member of Chiefs Kingdom watching this game, whether you're there, whether you're watching at home, whether you're watching somewhere else, whether you're not in Kansas City, just know this is a dangerous game with a dangerous quarterback and a dangerous head coach on the other side that has won a Super Bowl. So this weekend is not to be taken lightly. We are not waiting for the winner of the Bengals and Bills game, because if we get to Sunday and Jacksonville's in the AFC Championship game, it doesn't matter. This is a big game that everyone needs to take seriously, and I think that this coaching staff and this team is going to take very seriously, and I think Mahomes is on a mission, a straight-up mission to prove anyone and everyone wrong this year. I think he already has. He's obviously going to be the MVP. I think a clear-cut, MVP winner for this year, but I don't think that means as much. I think a great quote from Rob Gronkowski that I saw this past week about how Aaron Rodgers had said that he thinks he can win another MVP. Rob Gronkowski said, "Why are you thinking about MVPs? Championship is worth way more than an MVP." I think he gave a number to it, 5-10 times over an MVP. And I think Patrick Mahomes absolutely 110% believes the same thing. Every person on this team, from Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, to Nick Bolton, to Chris Jones, and to see what this team will be after this year, we have no idea. Chris Jones is up in the air, obviously. There's a lot of different pieces. Juju Smith-Schuster's up in the air. We don't know. This team has this shot right here. They're 2 games away from a Super Bowl. They're 3 games away from a world championship. That's not to be taken lightly. Andy Reid knows that. Patrick Mahomes knows that. And I think this weekend this team goes out there to win a football game. And I think they go out there and look to dominate and look to be, the team we know. This is one of the best teams in football at the end of the day. And I think they're going to be ready for whoever gets thrown their way. I told you that Brett Coleman comment and everything came after I wrote my blog. But I do stand by my prediction. 34-30. Chiefs over the Jaguars on Saturday. I think the Chiefs are a little bit too much, but I think the Jags keep up. It was only a 10-point game, and I think that's not to be taken lightly. I think we see the Jaguars as this team that, was awful last year with Urban Meyer, and, don't realize the amount of talent that they truly have on this team. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than what we think. But I do think the Chiefs prevail. They move on to another AFC Championship game. 34-30, Kansas City Chiefs win. Saturday at 3:30 on NBC. Make sure you tune in or come and be loud. But that's going to do it for me for this one. For your Jaguars and Chiefs preview. If you made it through the whole show, I really appreciate it. If you could give me a subscribe on the Substack, give me a like or review, whatever you want to do. If you enjoyed this podcast as well, let me know your comments. I want to know what you guys are thinking out there, Chiefs Kingdom and beyond. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to hear. And if you want to have your voice or opinion heard, let me know. I'm more than open to having anyone and everyone on this podcast. It's a platform that I'm, looking to create for myself and, anyone that wants to hop on and join in. So subscribe to the Substack. Again, review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you may be hearing this. Come check out the Substack if you haven't been over there yet. And I appreciate it. You have a great day. Go Chiefs.